I'm here with Jeremy Workman, director of Secret Mall Apartment. What a beautiful documentary. And I'm
Oh, thanks.
I'm just gonna start right off. Townsend was saying that he wanted to personalize his art and he was teaching his students about putting themselves into their art where it,
Mm.
eventually your documentary just evolves into him. You learn that he actually doesn't see the difference between the two. One merges into the other. Jeremy, personally, from your own work, did you feel that kind of kinship regarding that POV on art and life?
Yeah, it was a fascinating approach that he has. This is somebody who like lives his life in art. And there's things in the movie where people talk about, his life is his art. And I kept on noticing how like the secret apartment itself was like seemed like this kind of weird thing where it was this prank, but it was also this thing that where Michael and the other artists were like, this was their life. And their life was creating art and living in it in a weird way, in a way that we're just so not used to. It resonated with me big time because, I'm a documentary filmmaker and I really focus on characters who are kind of living in these unconventional ways and living in ways outside of, what we expect, how we think life should be living. And yeah, it was fascinating. And it also really kind of led me down a lot of paths with the movie where I said, "Oh, this isn't just this crazy sensational prank that is about, them living in a mall. Of course it is. And of course I love the fact that it's this incredible prank, but how it was so much more than that and how it connected to all these other things that Michael and the artists were doing."
Not to put too much of a fine point on it, but then also there's part of the 24-hour footage that's in your documentary. Michael is talking about, well, it's mentioned he understands that art can be it's not permanent, right? There's an impermanence to it, but then he also is mentioning during their discussions in the apartment that he's sort of amazed at the people's reactions towards art. So even though it's not
Yeah.
permanent, it can still affect people. And do you agree with that sort of look as well?
Yeah, it was so interesting because I had made a documentary previous to Secret Mall Apartment called Lily Topples the World. And it's about the world's greatest domino toppler. And she makes these elaborate artworks and then topples them down because they're toppling dominoes. And it kind of brought me into this world of temporary art. And then I thought I kind of knew what all this was. And then I met Michael, and then I met this crew from Secret Mall Apartment. And I realized that they were taking this a whole another direction in a way that all the art that they were doing, it was private, it was bandit, it wasn't, they didn't care about making money, they didn't care about acclaim, they didn't notoriety, they didn't even tell anyone. They don't even tell anyone about the art they're doing. They even started to see the secret apartment as the art. And it was all part of this thing where they were living the art, doing the art, but most importantly, they're doing this art and it doesn't last. It's all temporary. Michael is the world's greatest tape artist, which is this thing that I had no idea. It just sounded so bonkers. He makes art with masking tape and he makes these incredible, elaborate murals. And that becomes part of the story of Secret Mall Apartment. And I just had no, I didn't even know what this was. And then I realized that like when he's making his temporary art and it's in these spaces and he's kind of sometimes doing it bandit and people don't really know, it's related in this weird way to this secret apartment that they found in the mall. And that really was quite mind blowing when I kind of made those connections.
Making those connections with the tape art in the hospital, you see him and his friends are interacting with the patients, and it's amazing. They're making the art together. For you, in your personal documentaries, whether it's just trying to cover every street in New York or Lily Topples the World, and now the residents of Providence probably giving you their feedback on your documentary, what it's been like for you over the years, just interacting and connecting your art, your subjects with the people who are the most important part. They're giving you their dialogue. What's that like to share their lives with you?
Yeah, it's I've been now just this is my full-time thing. I just make documentaries, and I try to find stories that are not traditional stories. That's what I'm interested. It's not, I'm not going out of my way to say like, oh, what's a story that is weird or unusual. It's just where my interest lies. I'm not interested in celebrity profiles. I'm not interested in true crime. There's great documentaries in that, but it's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in people who are just kind of doing things because they just have to do them. They are consumed by an interest or a passion. And of course, it connects probably to things in my own psyche and how I see the world. But it's definitely something that where I love, kind of mining stories and finding characters, like-minded characters. And I think there is this kind of running thread between all my films of these stories of people who are kind of doing something with utter passion. And the people in Secret Mall Apartment, they kept the Secret Mall Apartment going for 4 years. They didn't care about anyone noticing, or they didn't want to be, get famous. They didn't want anyone to even know. They filmed all this footage. It wasn't for any purpose other than just for themselves. And I think that really resonated with me, people who are just doing something because they absolutely just want to do it and they have reasons to do it. And they may not be how we see the world, but they are fascinating in their choices.
On seeing the world, as I get older, I remember like my late father, he really got along with people and they got along with him. And now later in life, I'm thinking, well, I'm just so lucky that I have maybe 5 or 10% of that, my late father's traits. I interviewed your father years ago for Magician, a documentary.
Oh, wow.
I
Incredible.
love that doc. But just wondering, as far as you, do you feel regarding your father, regarding how he was with documentaries, did that maybe translate with you just a little bit, even though you are a singular artist yourself, of course, but
Of course, of course. Yeah. Absolutely. So my father, I grew up in a household with my father making documentaries. He made a great one that you mentioned, Magician, which is about Orson Welles. And, I was really, I was really exposed to that in a way that I feel very honored and privileged that I got to see that firsthand. I saw how difficult it was to make documentaries, how you have to just be resilient and just go after it and just not give a damn what people think or say. You just got to just go after it and do it. And he really imbued this sense of that vision in me, and also trying to make movies that connected with audiences, that you were making documentaries not, for yourself, not for your friends, but for audiences. Movies are for audiences. And I think that was also a huge lesson that I took from him and still do. He recently just got a cut of my newest documentary, and I'm sure I'll get some great notes on it. So yeah, it was a very privileged position.
yeah. So is your documentary in a weird way a good advertisement for Providence Place? Because now people will be such a fan of the documentary, they're gonna want to go to Providence. And
Oh,
so
you have no idea. You have no idea where I'm going to go with this answer. We decided to release the movie is now coming out on digital, so now everybody could see it, and we're so pumped about that. But we had this glorious theatrical run that we've been essentially in theaters for several months, but we premiered at the Providence Place Mall. We wanted to make sure that Providence Place Mall was where we premiered the movie. And it was complicated because we were like, this is a movie about trespassing. They don't look so great. But in an incredible turn, they embraced the movie and they said, well, we want to be involved in all this like Providence legend. And we premiered there. And it was, I mean, I kid you not, this is not exaggeration. It was like a sensation in Providence. I think we're the biggest movie box office in Providence other than Sinners, just to give you a sense this year. Like we outperformed, Marvel Comics movies at the Providence Place Mall.
look, I understand the theme of gentrification and displacement and urban development. It's great in your film, but wouldn't it be an ironic twist because towards the end, there is a possibility that some of these units might be turned into living spaces, and some of those owners might be inspired by your documentary and what Townsend did and his crew did.
Yeah, it's all the kind of weird coda, meta, self-reflexive aspect of the documentary is also so fun. I mean, just the fact that, now the mall's talking about putting in condos and that they were secretly living in the mall and trying to turn it into a condo. The fact that the mall again embraced the documentary and now you're watching this documentary in the scene of the crime. It's just this bonkers story that just kind of continues to kind of go and go.
Jeremy, without giving too much away, do you think in the coming months you might see an eBay item for a Sony PlayStation 2 from the secret mall apartment up for auction? Because that's a big mystery. Who were the culprits? I know they possibly were the security guards, but I thought that was just an interesting element to.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, when in the secret apartment, as your viewers, when they see the film, they had a couch, they had a TV, they had a Sony PlayStation. They played a ton of Grand Theft Auto when they were in the secret apartment. And then, without getting too much into spoilers, they're eventually caught. Like, that's not a spoiler. And then the Sony PlayStation disappears. It's probably with some security got it. And it becomes this sort of point of contention for everybody of like, where did it go? So yeah, I hope it turns up at some point.
Jeremy, final question is just a two-parter. What has it been like having Jesse Eisenberg as a producer in a couple of your projects, as a collaborator? I'm on the outside looking in as a cinephile. What do producers like Jesse bring to what you're doing?
Sure. Jesse's a friend of mine, and he first got involved in The World Before Your Feet. That was my documentary about the guy walking every street of New York. And I think he, just really just loves the process of seeing, this very kind of independent artistic approach to making movies. It doesn't have all the, hoopla and excitement of the projects that he's doing, but he really just appreciates the art of it. And he has been such a champion of mine and my films. And, he's a great backstop for me. I show him cuts, he gives me notes, he goes out and supports the movie and doesn't, he's not putting any like money or anything like that in, but he's become like a real spokesperson for these movies that I make and really kind of is aligned with the stories that I'm telling. And he's just been incredible. Like he did, a ton of Q&As for Secret Mall Apartment. He been on all kinds of press. He did a whole bit on Jimmy Fallon about the secret desk apartment where Jesse was living under Jimmy Fallon's desk. And yeah, he's just been great. So I'm so appreciative that he could kind of sprinkle some of his stardust on my project.
Secret Mall Apartment on digital next week. Jeremy Workman, thank you so much for your time. And after people watch and purchase Secret Mall Apartment on digital, what's the next project should they watch from your IMDb? What's the next one? And thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Greg. It's so fun to chat with you. Yeah, they should check out Secret Mall Apartment, Amazon, iTunes, wherever they rent movies. They could, my other movies are out there. They all have connections to Secret Mall Apartment, and I think there's a whole neat thread between them all. So yeah, I'd love them to check it out. And anyone can reach out to me. I'm easy to find, and I'd love to hear what they thought.
Again, thank you so much, Jeremy, for your time.
Thanks, Greg.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.